Thank you for the award on guns. It's something that I'm very proud of in the past 2 years, and something that everybody in this room should be proud of, because we did that together. We did that as New Yorkers. And the issue of gun violence is just as straightforward, in my opinion. You know, they say in life you can make a mistake, but learn from the mistake, and don't make the same mistake twice. When it comes to gun violence, we make the same mistake over and over and over again. And it wasn't Sandy Hook. It was Webster, New York, days from Sandy Hook. Webster, New York is right outside of Rochester. Christmas Eve. Last Christmas Eve, a person set a fire to a car. Firefighters and police came to put out the fire on the car. The person was in his attic window with an assault weapon, killed 2 firefighters, Christmas Eve morning. Before that, it was Aurora. Before that, it was Tucson with Congresswoman Giffords. Before that, it was Columbine. Before that, it was 500 people shot on the streets of New York City, year after year after year. Learn the lesson. Learn the lesson that the cost of the gun violence just isn't worth the apparent right, or what we hold up for as a right. And we passed common sense gun reform. What was common sense? Criminals shouldn't have guns. That was the great vision that I brought as governor of the state of New York. That was my intelligence. So if criminals shouldn't have guns, then we need a database of all the criminals' names. So when they go to buy a gun, we have a database to check them against. So we have prohibition against criminals, then we have a database. Here was my other brilliant stroke, came to me one night, difference between me and everyone else. People who are mentally ill shouldn't have guns either. So we then have a prohibition against people who are mentally ill getting guns. Then a piece of wisdom I actually first heard from Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, God rest his soul, which was just controlling guns isn't enough. 1 out of every 2 households in this country has a gun. There are enough guns out there to last 200 years. So even if you stopped producing every gun today, you still have a problem. And Senator Moynihan used to say, as only he could, it's the bullets. It's the bullets. State of New York, for the first time, when you go to buy ammunition, there's going to be a background check on ammunition purchases for the first time. Limit high-capacity magazines, ban assault weapons. Why? Because if the gun winds up in the wrong hands, God forbid, the high capacity can do tremendous damage. From law enforcement's point of view, the only break that a police officer gets is during that change of the magazine, right? Just those couple of seconds. If a police officer wants to try to step in and do something, that's all he or she has, is the brief interval on a magazine change. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything at all. And then we passed a provision inspired by Webster, mandatory life without parole if you attempt to kill a first responder in furtherance of their duty, period. Mandatory life without parole. We're going to lock you up. You're never going to see the sun shine, period. And that's what you deserve. So Second Amendment, yes, you have a Second Amendment right. And at the same time, society also has the right to protect itself. And that's what our New York SAFE Act says. Some people criticized us for doing it too fast, which was ironic. Albany that hadn't passed a bill in 10 years. Now I'm being criticized for doing it too fast. But I actually don't think we did it fast at all. I actually think we did it very slow. And that was my point about we were slow to learn the lesson. We still haven't learned the lesson. And it took repeated examples at a very high cost to humanity to make that point over and over and over again. I was in the Clinton administration. through all 8 years. But down towards the end, year 2000, we were that close to having a meaningful national agreement with all the gun manufacturers. I don't know if you remember, at that time there were individual lawsuits against gun manufacturers by attorney generals across the country, and we negotiated a joint settlement. All the lawsuits would go away, 64 at the time nationwide, one global settlement with gun manufacturers, and they were literally going to change the way they manufactured a gun. This is in 2000. They had technology that could read the fingerprint on the trigger, authorized user identification technology. And within 5 years, from 2000, every gun they make would have read the fingerprint of the purchaser of the gun. Amazing technology that they had back then. That was one of the provisions. Background checks, etc. And they were all set to sign the agreement in 2000. Actually, one company had signed already, Smith & Wesson, largest handgun manufacturer. And Smith & Wesson signed, and the rest were queued up and ready to sign. And George Bush was running for president, and he said, if I win as president, I'll immunize the gun manufacturers from private lawsuits so they won't have to worry about that. And the gun manufacturers, I was negotiating with them, said, well, what about that? If Bush wins, then we'd have immunity, and we wouldn't have to worry about this agreement. I said, don't worry, Bush is not going to win. Bush wins, and that's it. Since that time in 2000, over 300,000 more people die by gun violence. Over 300,000 more. We did it too fast. We didn't do it too fast. We should have done it in 2000 and saved 300,000 lives. We should have done it in 1995 and 1990 and 1985. This has been decades overdue. So no, we didn't do it too fast at all. We did it, if anything, too slow. Since Sandy Hook, another 4,000 people have died by gun violence. And this nation has done nothing. And my last point is, I understand the politics of the gun issue. I do. I really do. This is a diverse state, and I know the pros and cons of it. Believe me, I hear it all day long. But Washington actually had an opportunity to lead and to pass a law that would save lives. And this gridlock is a paralysis on this country. And it is literally seizing the progress from this country. Government is there to do things. Government is a service bureau. It's not a debating society. It's not a political organization. It's a service bureau to get things done to serve the people of this nation. That's the job in government. When you heard in the introduction, Mr. McGuire said, we get things done, you can't say anything better to me, about my government. It's working. It's working for the people of the state of New York. And that's true with the legislature, Democrats and Republicans. We have a different operating philosophy, and I take my hat off to them, because we said 2 years ago, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're New Yorkers first, and we're going to act that way, and we're going to leave the politics at the door, and we're going to do what's right for the people of this state, and we have, and it's working. And New York, that is truly the best of New York, because this state has had a legacy of leadership always, always. And you look at the governments of this state, whatever the issue was, we figured it out first, and we solved it first. Workers' rights started here in this state, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Environmental rights started here. Women's rights, Seneca Falls, started here. Every progressive movement, every time this country needed a direction forward, we showed the way. I was pleased to play a small part of that on the issue of gun safety. Thanks to you. Thank you for this award, and God bless you.